Welcome to our entrepreneurship slot, and it's brought to you by the Industrial Development Corporation, and the IDC has been in existence for 75 years, assisting different businesses in South Africa over decades. And of course, with the evolving times, they now have a whole variety of funding available for other sectors as well. One of the new sectors that the IDC funds is the media and motion pictures sector. And Basil Ford is with us to tell us a bit more. And Basil, welcome. And Trishana is also joining us to talk about motion pictures. Trishana Thevnarain, pleasure to have you with us, ma'am. Yeah. Right, this is relatively new, but it's been around for a few years now. Basil, tell me a bit more about your area.
Thank you, Tim, and good evening to the viewers. The Media and Motion Pictures business unit was established in 2001. So we've been around for some time now, and our role is to develop the film sector. So we are from the Media and Motion Pictures business unit at the IDC. Our role, in line with the rest of the IDC's role of developing sectors of the economy in South Africa. So we look at the media and motion picture side, the film value chain in particular. We look at the production of films, to the broadcasting of films, to the consumption of films at theatres. Our goal is to develop a self-sustainable film value chain. One of the very important programs that we have is the Emerging Black Filmmakers Transformation Fund, of which my colleague Trishana is the main driver of.
Well, let me stay with you for a moment, because one would think that movie making is a high-risk business and requires investments from individuals and companies that want high-risk type returns. So, you know, for IDC, what's in it for you? Why would you go into that area?
That's a very good question, Tim. And I think the reality of funding films in South Africa is that there are no other funders, or there are very few funders. And the role that the IDC plays is to engage in areas where there is a failure of funding. So the IDC would go in, it would try and build the sector to a point where other funders could become engaged in. And one of the very key areas that needs a track record, which doesn't have one, is in the funding of films. And it is a high-risk area. That's why no other funders come into play. And that's why very little private sector funding is available for this. And that's why the Transformation Fund is a critical element in order for us to try and build this track record so that other funders can come in.
And of course, it does not mean, notwithstanding the fact that it's a high-risk area, that there's not enough creativity out there, right? That the willingness, the passion for movie making exists in South Africa. There are a lot of great script writers, actors. Television has helped a great deal in creating a reasonably viable industry. What are you seeing out there, Trishana? What's going on?
Yeah, it's interesting that you asked the question, Tim, because that's one of the reasons why we actually came up with the Transformation Fund, Emerging Black Filmmakers Transformation Fund, because we see that this is the challenge out there. So we actually put together a fund where your film is actually fully funded, and we're looking at emerging black directors, because that's our intention. We actually want to develop black directors. Not only develop the black directors, but as you mentioned, like your talent. We're looking at you know, building a sustainable film industry, giving an opportunity to the local film industry. And I always say that we are here to turn creative visions into reality. So basically, the EBFTF, which is the Emerging Black Filmmakers Transformation Fund, it's fully funded by the Industrial Development Corporation, the National Film and Video Foundation, and the DTI. I'm sure most filmmakers are aware that there is an Emerging Black Filmmakers incentive by the DTI as well, which actually dovetailed very well with this EBFTF program. So in a nutshell, let me just take you through what we're looking at.
Sure.
So we're looking at production budgets of 5.8 million. Now, the The 5.8 million is actually made up of 5.2 million, which will be your actual production funding. And then we have 500,000 for marketing and 100,000 for statutory costs to keep the company alive, right? Now, it's key in terms of the marketing because we noticed that in the local industry as well, marketing is very important for films. So that's also funded, and that will be part of your 5.8 million. Now, we are developing black directors, so we want and we require a black director on each production. Majority of the intellectual property must be owned by a black person. Now, in terms of when we say majority, we always tell the producer to always look at your details as well, that you need to comply with the DTI, because this is also very important in terms of this fund. And what we've noticed in terms of the applications that are coming through is that we require scripts that are in second draft, meaning that it must be ready to go into production. Yeah. So we've noticed that people haven't, in terms of the applications, people are not actually putting in like scripts that are ready to go into production. So they
haven't developed their creative concepts, ideas completely, you know, to the point where they can go into production,
yes,
right?
Correct. Yep. So that's actually very key. That's very important. We require scripts that are ready to go into production. And we also need people to, look out for these calls that actually go through as well. Once these calls go out, we would actually say, okay, fine, in terms of, your applications that you put through, the NFVF will do a shortlist, which is based on your experience, the script, and looking at the budget. Now, the beauty of the whole thing is that we have something called the Green Light Panel. And at the Green Light Panel, we have the IDC that will sit on the National Film and Video Foundation, and we have the major distributors, which is key. Because in terms of this fund and all our films, we actually look at economic merit. So we have invited the distributors to come on board, and they would actually want the director and the producer to pitch the project. So when they actually pitch it, we will have a discussion in terms of whether we can get involved, because we're looking at economic viability and commercial viability. So all these films are for theatrical release as well.
But here's the point. I'll go back to what Basil spoke about earlier on in terms of the value chain, right? It's the production, which is important, and of course the fact that these productions must go into the theaters. Question is there a market for it? Because I've heard people say that really there's no market in South Africa for locally made movies, and I'm mindful of the fact that some of them will be for export anyway. Just so an aspirant movie maker should understand that you have to create product that will appeal to the market that's being created anyway or being developed.
Actually, it's a very interesting question, because whenever we deal with any producer, we always say, whenever you have a script, always look at your market. And in terms of the local industry, yes, there is a market for the local industry. We do take a small percentage compared to the box office, but there is a market. We always say, look at your market. So when people come up with their production budgets as well, people always say, I want to make something for 8 million or 9 million. But is there a market for it? So that's always a key question. Hence the reason why we have to rely on our distributors as well.
And the distributors play a key role in helping develop this market, isn't it?
Yes, exactly.
And what's their role been so far?
Well, actually it's been excellent, because in terms of all our discussions with the major distributors, all of them are actually willing to assist in terms of distribution and actually showcasing our local talent as well. And believe it or not, they're actually interested in local content. Yeah. It's like, and the feedback that we've got, I mean, it was excellent, and that's the reason why we're so excited about this project.
So people who are interested in this line of work, who are the creatives out there who want to produce their own movies, what do they do? Where do they start? Obviously, the script must be ready for production. What else?
Well, once the script's actually ready for production, you make an application to the National Film and Video Foundation, where all we're looking at is, obviously, you need a production, a budget, you need a producer and a director, and also what's very key is we're looking at people that have done some sort of production, for example, TV or maybe a feature. Now, we say emerging black filmmakers because we're looking at your black directors and producers that have actually produced less than 5 feature films, right? And if we think that you possibly need more experience, or we need a consulting or a supervising producer, we would have a discussion with our partners, and we will provide you with that as well. And that's the reason why we've actually dovetailed this with the National Film and Video Foundation, because they'll provide the supervision and the mentoring as well, which is very key.
Sure.
So we want to give an opportunity to the black filmmakers that have done like your TV productions and maybe a short film or a documentary. Now we need to take them to the next level. And that's the whole intention.
Okay,
So,
well, Basil, let me come back to you, because now, the area that I'm interested in all the time, which movie making is part of, media in general terms, how do you support that, media investments?
So our primary focus is on the film value chain.
Yes.
But we also look at broadcasting. So, for example, we funded Power FM, and we fund other radio stations. So we do look at other areas like the radio broadcasting. Animation, which is also really part of the film sector as well, is also a very key component of this, because animation is an area that South Africa can be globally competitive. And we can be globally competitive because we have a layer of talent in this country that is world-class. Unfortunately, that layer of talent is a little bit thin. So we need to broaden that layer. We also have a very good understanding of the Western world, the Western culture. We've got ties to Europe. So we understand that culture and that market better than our competitors in the East, for example. They struggle a lot more to understand humor, for example, whereas we understand it and we can build it into our production. So animation is an area that we can become globally competitive. Then I think the other areas that we are looking at as well, again, part of the film value chain, are cinemas in townships, a very, very critical component to make the value chain self-sustainable. So those are the areas. The rest of the other media, we don't really look at that, because we believe that if we focus on these areas, we will be able to much more able to make a success of it.
Sure. Well, I like this conversation, and I think we're going to showcase some of the case studies, right, that have gone through your hands, that you've supported, who through their work and success will highlight or tell a better story of what we've been explaining here. So I'm looking forward to talking to some of the people that you have assisted. And thank you very much for talking to us. We appreciate. So there you are. If you are a creative person and you want to go places, produce your own movie, not only for local consumption, but even for export. You are in animation, for instance, or you want to operate your own theaters in the townships or anywhere else in South Africa, the opportunities are there. Just get your business together, approach the IDC, and see where you can take your business to. And we wish you good luck in that regard. Basil and Trishana, much appreciated. That's it from us, and we invite you to join us again as we help make South Africa grow.